Leeds United have been in an extended race for Igor Paixao, the Brazilian winger. Obviously, everyone seems to have heard of him by now. Plays for Feyenoord, lots of goals, lots of assists last season. Incredible player, on the verge of the national team, which, if you're a Brazilian, especially if you're a Brazilian left winger, is a hell of an achievement. You're competing against Rafinha, Vinicius Junior, Martinelli, hell of a lot of decent players. But Leeds may currently be dealing with a lot more competition than we expect for that role. What I'm going to do in this video is run through Leeds United's news surrounding this situation, the clubs that we might be in competition with, a little bit of an update surrounding those, and ultimately where I think this deal is going to end up. But before I do all of that, I would just like you to do me a very, very quick favour, because I do a hell of a lot of these videos, and the least you can do in return is subscribe to the channel. If you have, fantastic, thank you very much. If you haven't yet, if you are one of the, let's have a look at the number, 53% of people that haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please just do so. It's really easy. It's the button down here. Be massively appreciated. Helps the channel to go in the right direction. Anyway, into the main bulk of the story. So, we learned this morning or late last night, one of the two, that Leeds United had put in an initial bid for Igor Paixao, a little bit more than the £26 million that had been put forward by Marseille, this being a fairly significant bid for us to put in. If you look at the numbers that we've been putting in for other players so far, it's the sort of number that shows that we are very, very serious about securing this player. However, shortly after that, we had learned that the bid was rejected by Feyenoord, which is completely fair enough. They are within their rights to reject or accept whatever bids they fancy. Fine. However, further little update, we also discovered that Leeds had jumped on in with a secondary bid for Igor Paixao without learning what the significant sum around that was, and without learning sort of how far away we were from what they wanted and whether or not that bid was accepted in the first place, which is where we're at on the Leeds end. However, there has been a lot of news surrounding non-Leeds stuff. I'm going to start with Marseille, because Marseille are the other club that have shown the most interest in Igor Paixao. So according to Graham Smith on the Square Balls pod the other day, the way that they were looking at tempting the player themselves was to sort of play the family game, play the sort of, yeah, but your relatives really want to come over, and sort of trying to tempt him over through that route. And apparently his relatives were really, really impressed by Marseille. However, Marseille don't have the sheer cash to persuade Feyenoord to make that sale, which is probably the most important thing to do in a football transfer. So Marseille are considered effectively out of the game unless they are to sell someone, have a little bit more money in the bank, and then work from that point onwards. Feels a little bit unlikely to me. Marseille probably out of the fight. Our own position in the conversation is sort of improved at the moment by the signing of Lucas Perry. For example, when you are moving from one country to another, it helps to have someone around you to sort of talk with and be familiar with. For example, if you are an English expat living in Spain, odds are you talk primarily to fellow English people, and you might not learn Spanish for a good while, because us English, not very good at learning second languages. So having Lucas Perry on board could help with the Paixao conversation, and us being fairly advanced in the Rodrigo Muniz conversations could also help with that, because apparently Fulham are looking at a new striker. Rodrigo Muniz potentially leaving to accommodate that could put us in a very good position to sign another Brazilian player, specifically Igor Paixao. There was another rumour surrounding Paixao having a further potential destination, specifically Roma, but there's a couple of weird little confusing bits around that. Firstly being that the rumour initially sort of spread on Wacko rather than anywhere else. And I know that Wacko occasionally gets the odd bit of news right, but very, very few other people have even mentioned Roma to do with Igor Paixao, which tells me that that is potentially not going to be happening in the slightest. Further on than that, is it Matteo Moretto or Moretti or something along those lines? Effectively, Fabrizio Romano's right-hand man has also said that Leeds United are in pole position on the Paixao deal. As far as basically everyone can tell, Igor Paixao looks like he wants to be on the move this summer. Looks like Leeds United are in a pretty damn strong position, and if Marseille have dropped out, and if Roma isn't something that is going to be happening, we're absolutely in the best position possible. Personally, I think there is a very, very high chance that this move happens because the door is wide open with Marseille having dropped out. Yeah, they can offer the Champions League, but the Premier League is not that much lower than that in terms of prestige at the moment. Playing week in, week out against very, very decent sides, it's not a bad place to play. And footballers around the world recognise this fact. It's why you'll see a few years back, Weston McKennie was on the verge of giving up time at Juventus to come to Leeds United, presumably to get himself on a bigger stage. Didn't stick around permanently, thankfully, but that's the sort of situation that you're in. Clubs like Juventus are losing out to clubs like a Bournemouth or a Brentford, or in this case, a Leeds, because you've got the power of the Premier League behind you. We're in a very, very nice spot, and I do genuinely think that if we put the money on the table, Paixao will find himself at Leeds United come the end of the window. There is a little bit more of a that was going on, and it was Igor Paixao doing a cheeky little Instagram story, which isn't quite how you expect transfer news to be done, but welcome all the time. Him working out, and it had a little sort of hourglass thing in the bottom left-hand corner. A lot of people have taken that he's got a transfer just around the corner and he's about to move and all this kind of stuff. In my opinion, this is probably specifically surrounding his injury, because it would be incredibly stupid for him to say, I'm on the move, only to not move. Either something is on the verge of happening in the next 48 hours, or it's specifically about his injury, which is the direction that I'm tempted to lean in terms of that one. Either way, to sum everything up, Marseille leads firmly in the race, apparently leading it. Roma not involved, and even if they are, they don't tend to have that much liquid cash sloshing around because, again, TV deals. Serie A is nothing compared to the Premier League. Hopefully that sums up the Paixao conversation for you, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please pop a like on it. Comment down below if you have any specific thoughts around Paixao. Will we sign him? Is there anyone else that you've got a little bit more interest in? Let me know. Subscribe if you haven't yet. You can even become a channel member. You get videos like this one early, which is hopefully massively appreciated. It really helps the channel to sort of keep chugging along. And I'm going to do the further cheesy thing. Whack that notification bell. Apparently only 11% of you have, and the YouTube average is about 20%. So you guys are below average viewership. Can't believe it. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you later. Also, I'm working for the vast majority of Saturday, so if I'm unable to stream, sorry about that. I promise you I'm doing my best. Anyway, toodaloo.